You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
I'm Sean Reynolds, the owner of Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds & Klein Appraisal, and your host for this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I'm hearing a lot of people, and I'm reading a lot of news articles and watching a lot of webinars about how the real estate market is going to tank. And I think a lot of people are under the impression that this is going to be the real estate market's going to see a correction just like it did in 2007, 2008 through whatever year it was until it finally kind of worked its way out. But there's a lot of major differences between what's going on right now with COVID-19 and our real estate market back then. And I want to go through some of those, and I'm going to make some predictions of why I think the Seattle real estate market and a lot of real estate markets across the U.S., all they're basically doing is pushing their spring market into summer or possibly early fall. And in this podcast, I'm just going to basically kind of go through where we are right now, what the trends are, and what that looks like for the current spring market, which should be starting right now. We're April 13th today, and what that looks like moving forward. And maybe I'm going to give some of my predictions on how I think some of the federal dates and some of the state dates play into effect with when we start to see real estate pick up. So let's jump on into it. So right now, where do we sit right now with the real estate market? Is it completely dead? No, it's not. Is it as robust as it was before the COVID-19 broke out? No, absolutely not. Has there been a lot of slowing? Yeah, there has. Transactions have been either put on hold or extended out. Some transactions have been canceled. Some buyers have not been able to secure financing. I know we saw on Friday, and we're just talking about that here in the office. On Friday, Chase, one of the biggest residential lenders in the United States, they upped their lending criteria requirements to having a credit score of 700 and 20% down. Just no question about it. Hey, if you want to get a loan from us, here's the deal. And those are some terms that we haven't seen for quite a while, but you can't really blame lenders in this environment for kind of just restricting things down, making things a little bit tighter, because they're getting caught having to lend out and then also not getting paid on the other end with all these forbearances. So it's a tricky time for everybody in the real estate food chain. And so do we have activity still going on? Yeah, we've still got listings coming on at Summit Properties Northwest. We've still got listings, just not a ton. If a seller is looking around and they're seeing that nobody else has any inventory in their marketplace, and they see that prices have not dropped, and that's another big factor. Prices have not dropped yet, and it's too early on to tell where we are price-wise because we just don't have enough data kind of after all of the states and after the United States been put into basically a lockdown, a stay home, stay at safe order. We just don't know how things are going. But from the appraisal end of things, from the Reynolds & Klein end of things, I am not seeing a huge drop in pricing. I'm not seeing a huge drop in new homes coming on the market. Their prices relative to where we were a month ago. I'm not seeing a ton of appraisals come in low. I'm seeing some, and there are some appraisers out there who will be super conservative through this, because if you put your name on an appraisal right now today, it's Monday, April the 13th. If you put your name on an appraisal today and you don't have some recognition of we don't really know where we're at, then basically you're not doing your job. And so a lot of appraisers that I know are indicating, hey, we are in a turbulent time in the marketplace, and our numbers may go into a decline. We're not sure yet, though. And so nobody's really declining checking the decline box on the appraisals yet, but I could see that being a very real reality. I think you're going to have a number of appraisers who take the conservative approach and point to some data and say, okay, oh no, this is where we're at. Things are going south rapidly. I think what's happening right now is a lot of real estate is being put on hold, and there is still great demand for real estate. People need to move. They have jobs. They're moving. Maybe they're renting and they're looking to buy. It is an amazing time if you're a buyer and pricing is something that you can live with, even though things haven't really dropped. Buyers, if you're out there actively looking, you have basically no competition because there's very few people. Everybody is staying at home right now. And that's one of the main reasons I think that once the orders are lifted across the U.S., you're going to have a massive, just kind of a run to the field effect by all the people that have been putting their searches on hold, putting their moves on hold, putting the biggest financial decisions of their life on hold. Sellers have not wanted to enter into the marketplace because who wants to have a bunch of strangers coming through, real estate brokers, strangers, building inspectors, appraisers, all those people coming through your home when you're supposed to be socially distancing yourself. I think there's so much kind of stigma being attached to don't go out. Don't, even when you go to the grocery store, don't look at people. Don't go down the wrong aisle because you might have an arrow there and you're supposed to be going the other way. It's such a stressful time to even just get your groceries. Imagine trying to make a move right now. Some of the research I was doing before this article was, let's talk about having movers come through your home. What are some things you need to look at? And that's if movers in your state are considered essential workers. In most states, they have been because you need them to get stuff around. But if you're in a state where movers are not available, are you going to move yourself? That's a tough thing to do. You've got some heavy stuff. Everybody has heavy stuff. If you don't have a couple of young guys in their 20s that are family members or whatever, you're going to have to do it yourself. And that's a lot of work. So I think a lot of sellers and a lot of buyers are basically just saying, you know what? We do need to make housing decisions. We do need to do something here, but we're just going to put it off until these orders get lifted. And then I think what will happen is a month after the orders get lifted, you are going to see a bunch of homes come on the market. You're going to see those homes that should be coming on the market right now. Those are going to get put on the market. So let's work the timeline. So right now, end of April is when we are earmarked by the federal government, by the current president. President Trump has said end of April. Let's shoot for that. And I think everything is kind of is being moved around that number or that date. So May 5th for the state of Washington. Go back to business as usual. And our governor has said, hey, we don't know. President Trump tomorrow night, Tuesday, April the 14th, I think he basically has his speech, which has been dubbed the biggest decision of his presidency. And yeah, it'll probably have a major impact, but it'll also kind of get us on a schedule for, all right, here's what the president is saying. Do we follow that? Do we not follow that? Do our individual states do something different? But at least we'll have the timeline. So let's call it May 1, just for kicks. May 1, orders get lifted. There's going to be a massive rush of sellers who need to get some of that stuff done to their home that they couldn't get done during this time, where they didn't really feel like having painters come out, didn't feel like having carpet people, just didn't feel like the social stigma was worth it to have somebody working on their home when they're supposed to be socially isolated and you're supposed to be hunkered down, not having contact with people. You want to have a lot of contact with people and your stuff, have movers come in and move your home. They got to pick up everything. They're going to be touching handrails, opening up doors. I mean, talk about no social distancing there. Very difficult to do. So I think all of those people who would have had that done in March and in April, that shift is all now into probably early June, because May is going to be a time period of figuring out pricing. What does pricing look like? Do we have a drop in pricing? Do we want to do this? Okay, no, there's been enough demand out there and so little inventory and such low interest rates that purchases are still happening. We're still seeing that happen. Granted, it's not a ton, but it's some. And in any other market, you would have no activity going on at all. Virtually none. But because of the market dynamics and because this slowdown did not happen because of real estate, I think you're going to see real estate bounce back much quicker than people are anticipating. I don't think there's going to be the short sales that we saw, because this isn't a housing crisis. This is a health crisis. Huge difference. So housing, I think, has a quick bump back, and we get kind of back into that marketplace of activity. So here in Seattle, you've got a ton of jobs that the people that are coming in for the jobs are coming in on more of the mid-tier and upper-tier housing market. The low end, the affordable, there's really no affordable in Seattle within like a 45-minute drive. It just doesn't, a 45-minute drive of the major employment centers. So affordability here in Seattle and is not great anyway. And so a lot of the jobs that are coming in are upper end jobs with people with a lot of money and with really good employment projections. So those are the buyers you're going to see come in droves in June when there's some more inventory on and people are able to get around. So what's happening right now? Here in Seattle right now, real estate agents are having a tough time showing properties. You can only really go in with one agent at a time. I know a lot of agents are opening up the home for the buyer, letting the buyer go through themselves, and then the agent, then once the buyer has left the home, they are going and locking up the home. They're not even really having any personal contact with their buyer. That puts a real damper on purchasing the biggest investment of your life. It's just a really uncomfortable time. Maybe you want to get your real estate agent's feedback while you're in the home. That's tough to do. Should you be in a home? You've got neighbors looking around going, what are they doing? They're too close. They don't live together. What's happening? So there's a lot of that going on. And I think people are they're waiting for this to be lessened. And so come May 1, if you have that happen, after that, you're going to have a few weeks of buyers getting out looking, starting to look again, and then you're going to have the sellers prepping their homes, doing all those tasks that they haven't been able to do during the shutdown, getting those contractors in there who are now considered non-essential. So what we do have is we do have activity going on both the listing side and the closing side. We are listing homes, we are closing homes, not a ton. But given the circumstances, everybody's in a lockdown. I think it's fairly encouraging what the activity that we do have going on. And so much of that will just get shifted to summer. So we're in, call it May 1 now, things get lifted. And so as of June and July, they're going to see the activity we would normally have in March and April. And so we're going to have a late start to this year's market. Our interest rates are still incredibly low, and a lot of lenders are saying we expect to see those go even lower. I think a lot of volume is coming through our systems kind of on a sporadic basis because the lending pipelines need to be cleaned out. They need to have all of their stuff go through so that they can take on new files of new borrowers. You're seeing a lot of that. So still a lot of refinances going on, some purchases, not a ton. So what will that look like come summertime? I think people are going to jump in earlier than later because they're going to need to get those moves made before the school season starts in September, early September of next year. And in a lot of areas of the country, it's August. So you're going to have some pressure in there for sellers to, if they want to sell, get the house on the market, catch this late market, because now the real estate market it's no longer a given that you put your house on the market in February, March, April, and that's your spring season. It's kind of this moving target of, oh my gosh, when do we put our home on the market? And that's why a lot of the lifting of the stay-in-place orders becomes so critical, because now there's a timeline created of when all of this will happen. So I think you're going to see an amazing kind of rebound, and it'll be all of this pent-up demand, this buyer demand, and then all of the sellers who want to get their homes on the market, they're going to jump. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have everybody running around, including real estate agents, who are going to be able to do their job without being hamstrung by doing video tours and trying to make the best of what they are right now. And that's what everybody's doing, is trying to make the best. I know title companies and escrow companies, they're doing like escrow signings, and you send the paperwork through the window kind of thing. Title companies are doing the best they can to stay open and keep the employees in there they need to. As an owner of an appraisal company, we're still sending appraisers into people's homes. They're oftentimes wearing masks when they're going through homes with occupants, for sure, wearing masks, wearing gloves. Those are some of the things we're doing, having sellers or having homeowners leave the home so that we can do an inspection without having a ton of people interacting socially. So those kind of things will all, I think they will get changed when the social orders get lifted. Will we go back to 100% normal? Absolutely not. Will there still be social distancing encouraged? Yeah, for sure. What does that look like? I don't really know, but I think you will still have some components of what we're experiencing right now that will carry forward for quite a while, especially considering we've got a lot of people dying from the coronavirus, and we've got new cases still happening. And so we're talking about trying to keep people safe, and then the real estate market going back to what it's going to go back to. And also businesses, I think you've got a big push with the way that the payroll protection program has been placed, where businesses with under 500 employees, they need to spend their money on payroll before the end of June. That's the bottom line right now, with a big component, with I think a $600 billion component of the payroll protection program. Initially it's $350, and then we've got another $250 earmarked for that. But that's how businesses need to keep their payroll, their employees on the company payroll. They're going to need to spend some money, and we need to get those businesses opened back up so that owners can actually spend money on something that is productive, which is having your employees working at a company that is open to do business. With the payroll protection plan right now, a lot of businesses, especially the businesses that really need it, they're not open for business. Bars are not open for business. Restaurants are not open for business. Any of those little businesses that follow down that food chain, they're not in business because of the social distancing that's in place. So if you want to give, billions and billions of dollars to these business owners, that's great. But the business owners are saying, should I take on this debt even though I'm not in business yet? What are the things I can be doing to get ready for business? They're thinking about that because a lot of the money I think will come out this week in the payroll protection plan. At least the first big blast will come out. And then business owners have the decision to make of, all right, do we start bringing employees back on and start paying them now through these funds? Or do we wait until we are up and running to actually serve customers, to actually produce the widgets that we get paid for? Because to have all this money out in the marketplace, it doesn't do any good unless businesses are open and America's consumer society can actually consume something. With everybody hunkered down at home, you're not going to have much of a trickle into the economy. People are too freaked out that they're not going to have a job. Pricing is going to drop. Inflation takes control. Who knows? People are afraid of a lot of different things out there. They're afraid of getting the coronavirus. And so I think a lot of these fears, especially the inflation one right now, you're not going to see because we've got too much downward pressure on with what the Fed is doing to have that come into operation. So my main prediction is that the spring market, and this is what a lot of people are saying anyway, is the spring market, it doesn't fizzle, it just gets... the spring market doesn't fizzle. It just gets postponed until early summer. And then I think you'll see a lot of closings happen throughout the rest of summer. And usually when summer slows down in August, I think a lot of markets are still going to be super hot because they just haven't had the ability for the buyers to do what they need to do housing-wise because everybody's been shut down and at home. So I think a lot of decisions will be made over the next couple of weeks as to what that timeline looks like. And as we have more dates, I will be kind of honing in what I think will happen. But for right now, interest rates are still super low. Inventory even lower. That's the main thing that's propping up pricing across the United States is there just isn't enough inventory to go around for even what few buyers are out there. And with new construction especially being basically shut down here in the state of Washington, all the new construction inventory homes that we were expecting to come on, those aren't happening. So you've got even less demand, you've got lower interest rates, I think when the stay-at-home orders get lifted, we are off to the races. And I know that sounds like complete cheerleading, but I don't think that is, that's not the message I'm trying to say, is that everything's going to be fine. Because we don't know how many of these businesses are going to come back after the stay-at-home orders get lifted. That's a major concern, is that that has a big downward pull on the real estate market, from the standpoint of a lot of entry-level jobs may be eliminated, or people can't get back into the businesses they were once in, businesses shut down, have a lot of that. There's a lot of fear out there, and rightfully so, because we don't know how the stimulus package is going to play out. We don't know how the dates are going to play out. Our business is going to be able to open back up. But I think you're going to see a big surge of real estate for sure when things get opened up. And I think prices are going to hang in there for now. I don't think you're going to see a big dip. If you need to place a home on the market right now, you might take a little bit of a whack, but it's nowhere near the whack you would have taken during any of the other major recessions that have taken place over the last 20 years in the United States. So as far as real estate goes, where we're sitting right now, real estate is still pretty strong, and I am looking for a bullish recovery, and that's just based on numbers. So we are still doing a daily podcast here. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. If you're listening to this on our many podcast platforms, I appreciate you listening and tuning in so much. We're still doing a daily podcast for as long as the stay-at-home, stay-at-place orders are in place, and business is not usual. So thanks again for tuning in. We will keep you up to date on what's going on, and I look forward to seeing and talking with you on the next podcast. Again, I'm Sean Reynolds from Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds & Kline Appraisal. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.